Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at this tiny Toshiba Libretto 70. This is the Japanese model. The American one would be the Libretto 70 CT. Obviously you can see here it has the Japanese style keyboard. However, it still has enough of the English characters to make it a very useful machine. This one has a couple of problems, and also I want to look at doing a few interesting upgrades. Namely, I want to add USB-C charging to this little libretto. This is made possible by using the power delivery feature of USB-C where other voltages can be negotiated. Namely, one of those is 15 volts, which makes it perfectly compatible with this tiny libretto. So let's look at a couple of the issues and see about making the necessary upgrades. So let's get right to it. So let's go ahead and get this system powered on and take a look at the issue that I'm noticing with the screen. This one only has the base 16 megabytes of RAM, but I think we can go ahead and upgrade that to the full 32. We'll take a look at that in a minute. But right away, and it doesn't show up as well on camera as it does in person, but there is I'm not really sure. It seems like the screen is either delaminating or it is just kind of blown out here on the edge. It's very noticeable when the screen is black or showing dark colors, a little bit less so when it's white. But I want to go ahead and see if I can swap over the screen from another libretto into this one and also get the RAM upgraded. So that machine is sitting right here, and that is just a regular Libretto 50. It has a number of other issues, but the things that we're interested in is it has a screen that's in good condition, and it also has the 16 megabyte upgrade module. So let's go ahead and see if we can get the screens apart on these two units, swap over the RAM, and then we can look about upgrading the power input to USB-C. So let's get into it. Okay, so to get into the screen here in the libretto, we're going to have to remove these two little covers right here. And behind here will be some screws, and then with that we'll be able to separate the LCD. So let's go ahead and use our X-Acto knife here and maybe a spudger and see if we can carefully remove these without doing too much damage. So let's go ahead and give that a shot. Okay, so I have the little covers removed from the screen here on the Libretto 50. This is where we're going to take out our LCD. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these two screws on the side, and there's another screw here, but I don't think we need to remove that to get the cover off. So we'll just go ahead and loosen and remove these two screws. All right. And let's see if we can get this other one to go ahead and come out of there. There we go. Okay, so now that we have the screws out, I'm going to go ahead and start to separate this LCD assembly. And we'll start at the bottom here, just because this will be the area where we're least likely to see any pry marks. And I'm just going to run my spudger along this edge until I'm able to separate the screen assembly. So there it goes. We can feel the clips starting to pop. And there's already some damage here to this one where the plastics are just disintegrating. Go ahead and remove the mouse nub. That'll probably hold that on there. And we'll just work our way around and go ahead and get this to separate. So it should come off fairly easily. Now this is probably going to crack. Yep. So yeah, this Libretto 50 has suffered some pretty severe damage in the past, but yeah, the plastics are just getting very, very brittle on these librettos. So here we have the LCD assembly, and all we really want to do is go ahead and remove the screws that are holding the actual LCD in. So let's get those screws out, and we'll pull this screen out of this Libretto 50. Okay, all four of the screws are removed, so now the LCD should just lift right out. And there's going to be some cables that are holding this on. I don't know if we need to go ahead and remove the inverter Seems like there's a cable running behind the inverter that's holding that in. So let's go ahead and take the screw out of the inverter over here. And that should give us a little bit easier access. So let's see. Yeah, this whole thing should just come right off now. Okay, there we go. So here's the LCD, and all we really need to do is just disconnect the data cable and the inverter cable. So let's go ahead and pop this off the back of the LCD. There we go. And we'll disconnect the inverter cable. And there we have our replacement Libretto LCD. So we'll put this to the side. And we'll just kind of keep all of this together. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of put this back together a little bit, like so. And we'll go ahead and put this cover back on. So this is a good spare parts machine. There's a lot of good parts in here. The inverter is still working. The mouse and everything else is still working. So we'll just keep this together as a parts machine. And see if we can fit this back together. You know what? I might go ahead and put the screw back into the inverter board here just to hold that in place. Okay, yeah, that should make that a little bit easier, and we'll just go ahead and put this back on like so. Doesn't need to be perfect. This machine is just going to be used for spare parts. So the next thing that I want to get out of this machine is the 16 megabyte RAM upgrade. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this bar. Oh gosh, man, these plastics on these Librettos, holy moly. I've taken these off of so many Librettos and never seen one crack like that. But okay, let's see if we can go ahead and get that off the rest of the way. There we go. So underneath is where we will find our 16 megabyte RAM upgrade. I'm going to go ahead and remove the keyboard like so. And we don't actually have to fully remove the keyboard. Here is our 16 megabyte RAM upgrade. So we'll go ahead and take this out. There is one screw that holds that in at the top. And then we can just easily separate the RAM module. And yeah, we'll just use our spudger to lightly lift this up, wiggle it a little bit, and it should just go ahead and come free. There we go. So here is our 16 megabyte RAM upgrade. So that's great. Now we have a working screen and a 16 megabyte RAM upgrade. So let's go ahead and put this unit to the side. And yep, this will officially be just a parts machine for the future. So let's get our Libretto 70 out. So now we need to do the same thing and hopefully not cause any additional damage in opening up the screen assembly. So we'll go ahead and just remove those same two screws. So we'll remove this screw here. And this one over here. And we will do the same thing. We'll start here at the bottom and start separating the two halves of the LCD assembly. So I'll just use my spudger and run this along this bottom edge and can start to feel those clips loosen. So far, so good. Okay, and now we can do the same thing along the side. This should just start to separate. There we go. And just try and be really careful with the plastics on these Librettos because they are crumbling. Oh yeah, and we'll go ahead and remove this mouse button. That will hold the front piece on a little bit. And yeah, we'll just keep working up this edge. This one does have a little bit of a crack right here near this latch, which is very, very common on the Librettos. So most of mine have that particular damage. I think I only have one or two that don't. So we'll just be very careful and start separating that. And we'll do the same on this side. Oh no! Wow. Okay, it looks like it cracked right there. Yeah, these plastics are just insanely brittle. So that is very unfortunate. But let's see if we can go ahead and keep separating this. Hopefully that won't be too noticeable once we put the cover back on to that assembly. But we'll keep working our spudger just along this edge very carefully. Okay. And we'll do the same on the top. Just very, very carefully run our spudger. And I can see, oh wow. Oh man. Okay, so we got that off, but it was not without some casualty. So as you can see, the plastics are just cracking everywhere. Wow, this is not good. I don't know if this is really going to go back on there the way that I was hoping it would. Man, it is cracked here at the top. It's cracked here. Man, oh man, oh man. So I don't know, maybe we'll put some super glue on the back of this and see if we can shore it up a little bit, but unfortunately a lot of the clips here at the top have also cracked. So yeah, that's not really great, but what can you do? This is just the kind of the situation we find ourselves in. These librettos, especially the ones that have lived their life primarily in Japan, for whatever reason the plastics are just insanely brittle, and I'm not sure why. So, I don't know, maybe one day someone can come up with replacement cases for the librettos, because other than the cases falling apart, the hardware is remarkably stable. And yeah, it's just a shame to have something that is such a nice little machine let down by something as simple as plastics cracking. But let's go ahead and continue and see if we can get into this a little bit more. So the next thing that we want to do is go ahead and do the same thing, and we'll go ahead and remove the screws from around the LCD, and we'll also remove the inverter board. So let's go ahead and get these screws out. Okay, screws have been removed from around the screen, so we'll go ahead and lift up our screen assembly. The inverter board should come along with it. So there we go. And we'll just go ahead and remove the data cable from the back of the LCD, like so. And we'll disconnect that from our inverter. So here is our LCD that has the damage to it. It's quite a nice little LCD unit, so that's unfortunate. But yeah, we'll go ahead and put this one to the side. And we'll get out our replacement screen. And while this is here, I'm just gonna, wow, yeah, you see all this plastic coming out of here. Those are just shards of the original plastics that have just started to crack. So we'll go ahead and get our new screen connected to the inverter. And looks like this should only go in one way. Looks like it goes in the other way. There we go. And turn that around. All of our cables will be fine. And we'll go ahead and reconnect the data cable to the back of the screen, like so. All right. So now everything should just fall back into place. Looks like this kind of moved a little bit. Let's see if we can get that back into position. Everything very, very fiddly on the inside of these. Okay, there we go. And the screen and the inverter. Awesome. So that should be everything back into place. So we'll just go ahead and get our screws back into the screen and the inverter, and go ahead and fire it up and make sure that this is working. Okay, that's our new screen installed. So let's go ahead and power this on and just make sure that the screen is working and that it looks nice and bright. So go ahead and power it on, hit the power button here at the top. And yep, screen is looking great. So that is a successful swap of the LCD screen. So we'll go ahead and power this back off. All right. So the next thing that we want to do, and I was going to go ahead and put the front back on, but I think it's pretty clear we're going to have to do a little bit of repair to this top piece, this cover for the screen, namely just trying to shore up some of these cracks with some super glue. So go ahead and start with the next part of this, which is just going ahead and getting the libretto apart. So same thing, we're going to go ahead and carefully try and remove the keyboard cover thing here. And this is pretty easy. You just kind of lift it up a little bit, and then I like to just twist it slightly, and that normally tends to release the clips. Sometimes it needs just a little bit of help. I definitely don't want to crack this one like the other one did. So there we go, successfully removed, no damage. So we'll go ahead and take our keyboard off, remove this top screw, and we'll go ahead and remove this keyboard entirely because we're going to go ahead and open up this entire unit to do the USB-C modification. So I'm going to place the keyboard just like this. And there's two screws here that hold in these kind of ribbons that give the keyboard a little bit of extra rigidity. So we'll remove this one first. And then we'll remove this one. And then we will just use our spudger to move the clip holding the keyboard ribbon down. So just be very careful. Don't want to push it too much, otherwise it might break. So we'll just slowly work that from either side, like so. There we go. And there we go. All right, so now this keyboard should just come right off. And there we have our keyboard. So here is where our 16 megabyte module will go. And that's really all of the screws that I believe have to be removed, although it looks like there's this heat shield. So I'm not sure if this screw has to come out, but we'll go ahead and take this one out. It looks like this one may have to come off. The screw up here does not need to come out. And we'll do the same thing here. And is there any other screws holding that on? I don't think so. There's just a little bit of adhesive. All right, so there we go. There's our little kind of protective EMI shield out of there. And the next thing we want to do is go ahead and disconnect our LCD ribbon. So we'll just use our spudger to just very carefully work this up. And there we go. And so this is the only cable that holds the top half of the computer down to the motherboard and down to the bottom half. So with that, we can go ahead and close it very carefully. And we'll go ahead and remove the screws from the bottom. So first thing I'll do is go ahead and disconnect the battery. And it's normally a good idea to leave the battery in while working on the machine because it does add a little bit of weight and adds a little bit of structural rigidity to the machine. Especially important when there's so many plastics that are just ready to crack. So we'll go ahead and start by removing our hard drive cover on the side. And one nice thing about the Librettos is that all of the screws on the bottom are the same type. They're all Phillips head and they're a little bit long of a screw. And with that, the cover should come right off. There we go. And we'll go ahead and remove the rest. Okay, so that is all of the screws removed from the bottom of the Libretto. Now we should just be able to separate the two halves. And one thing that these really like to do is they like to crack along here on this edge and on this edge. So hopefully we can get this apart without too much damage. But yeah, the plastics are just insanely brittle on these machines. So yeah, I'm expecting a little bit of cracking as we try to separate these. So, and there's kind of clips here at the very front that like to hold on with a lot of strength. Yep, see, as I removed that one, it did a little bit of damage here. So yeah, that just, it sucks, but I'm having this happen more and more and more as I try to take these machines apart. And yep, same thing. So that's just where there's a clip and there's just no way to remove that without damaging the plastics. So just kind of comes with the territory, unfortunately. But the rest of this should separate very easily. And there we go. We have the top half completely separated from the machine. So now that we can get a better look at the bottom half, we can start looking at how we're going to perform this USB-C upgrade. So what I've done is I have created a 3D model, and it's basically a replacement for the outline of the barrel jack, but it instead has a USB-C PD trigger. So this is one of those tiny little boards that you can get, and this one is set up for 15 volts. And all we need to do is reconnect the power that goes to this current jack to the terminals on this one. So I'm going to get in a little bit closer here and we'll start looking at that. Okay, so here we are a little bit closer on the Libretto. So there is a battery over here, and that's for the BIOS and the RTC. So normally with these, I like to just go ahead and remove these batteries. It does make it a little bit annoying when it starts up. It'll always complain about losing settings. But I'd just rather go ahead and remove these batteries before they start to leak, and they will leak and they will start to seep up that corrosion and the acid through the wires and onto the board. And obviously we don't want that to happen. So, but other than that, there is nothing that really holds this together, but there is a, let's see, yeah. I have a card slot cover here and on the side. So, but other than that, there is no more screws that hold this piece down. So now we should just be able to go ahead and lift up the motherboard. And sometimes the barrel jack just kind of binds up a little bit there and holds it down. But with that, there is our motherboard. And you can see over here I have a compact flash to IDE adapter already installed. So all we really need to do is disconnect our barrel jack connector here. And as you can see, the way that this is that there is a small ridge along the side that provides a little bit of mechanical strength, so that our USB-C connector can fit in just like so. And I might need to do a little bit of additional filing there, but yeah, this is that's going to work. So let's put this to the side for a second. Okay, so here we have the bottom of the Libretto and our small PD board installed into our little 3D print. And what we want to do is we're going to install this in this orientation so that the circuit board does clear this screw post. However, once we push this down, the motherboard is going to hit that just ever so slightly. So what we want to do is remove some of the PCB on this side. And let's go ahead and get that back out. Of course, it's a very snug fit. It does not want to come out. There we go. So, and this is on the negative side, at least on this board. Now I want to do this such that at least one of these holes is still present, just in case there's any sort of connection between the front and the back. But we should just be able to notch this out ever so slightly on this side. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, yeah, that looks pretty good. So let's see if this is allowing it to clear the motherboard. So I'll go ahead and pop this back into place like so, and see if our board fits. And yeah, that looks perfect. So the other nice thing about this is that that's going to provide a good amount of mechanical rigidity to this USB-C port, to the point where I'm not even sure we'll need to glue that in. With the way that that's going to be kind of held against the side of the motherboard. So now all we need to do is we'll desolder our wires that go to our original barrel jack here and just solder them onto our USB-C port. And the first thing we'll do, just to make sure that we haven't caused any damage to our USB-C PD trigger here, is we'll go ahead and connect that to our USB-C cord, and I will get the voltmeter and we'll just make sure that we're still getting the expected 15 volts. And yep, that looks good, 14.95. So all should be well with our PD trigger. So we'll go ahead and desolder this and get that connected to our trigger. All right, so the wires are very, very short on this little cable here, and we want to preserve as much of that as possible. It's probably easier to find new connectors, but this wire is a little bit thick, so that's kind of unique. So we'll go ahead and slice open this heat shrink and see if we can get that removed from around the wires. So we'll just slice into that a little bit, and we should just be able to peel that away. So we'll take our tweezers here and see if we can go ahead and peel off this heat shrink. And we just need to get it back a little bit. So that should be good there, and then we'll do the same thing around here. And worth noting that the brown wire is the positive. You can see that it goes to the center here. And the black wire is negative. So with enough of the heat tubing out of the way, now we can just take our soldering iron and go ahead and get that off. So we'll go ahead and heat up the negative wire here. That should just come right off. There we go. And we'll do the same thing for our positive wire. That should just come right off. So there we go. There's our original barrel jack. And now all we need to do is solder that onto our connector here. So if we look at how this goes in, it goes in like this. So what we want to do is probably solder the wires to, yeah, I think it'll be fine if we solder it to, just looking at the way the board is laid out. Yeah, so we should just be able to solder these right to the top. So we'll go ahead and clean this cable up a little bit here. So there we have our positive and our negative wires. So, okay. And we'll just trim our negative a little bit here. We don't need that much wire. And the length there on the positive is a little bit shorter. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect that. And yeah, let's go ahead and solder this up. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to add a little bit of solder to these terminals. Like so. And like so. Okay, and just to make sure and double check that the one that we've notched out is the negative side. So let's go ahead and connect our positive wire. just like that. Sure, a good connection. And we'll do the same thing for our negative wire. So go ahead and get that connected, just like this. And that should be perfect. So that should be all the soldering that is necessary. So if we take a look here, we have the negative wire connected to the negative output and the positive wire to the positive. So that should be all the modifications that we need. And I think this folds around like so. So we'll take a look there. Yep, everything's looking good. So let's go ahead and fit that back into the case, just like that. Make sure that it's pushed down, and it is. Okay, and we'll go ahead and get our motherboard back in. So I'm just gonna connect and it's a little bit tight in there for sure. But yeah, let's see how we can get that connected again. You know what, it's probably easier to just go ahead and remove this connector again from the bottom chassis. Oh, went flying there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and reconnect our power connector to the motherboard. And now we should be able to just slot this into the case, like so. And our motherboard should fit right in. And yep, that's looking pretty good. Yeah, that's looking real good. Awesome. So that should be all of the internal modifications. So now we can go ahead and get the top put back on. Okay, so yeah, that's looking good. So let's go ahead and get the top half reconnected. So we'll just push this down on top, make sure that our USB-C socket is over here on the side, and it is. It's looking good. Excellent. And so yeah, besides for the plastics cracking here, that's looking really nice. So we'll go ahead and push this down. Everything should... Oh man, yeah, these plastics, holy moly, is it just disintegrating. That just sucks, but well, it just is what it is, I suppose. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get a couple screws in here just to kind of hold this together. Get one here. And we'll go ahead and put one here. And we'll go ahead and do a test of our USB-C socket and see how that's working. So we'll go and flip that back over. Carefully open up our screen. All right, so now if we go ahead and reconnect the display cable to the top. Okay, so I have the display connector connected back, and what we should see when we plug this in is at least the green power light come on. So, moment of truth, let's see if this is working. Hey, look at that, green light came on. So let's go ahead and put the battery in and see if the orange light comes on, and that should indicate that it is charging. Hey, look at that. So yeah, I think this is gonna work. So let's go ahead, and while we're in here, we'll go ahead and get our 16 megabyte module installed. And it's nice, yeah, these don't always have this screw over here, but we'll go ahead and take this screw out. This is where the RAM module will mount. And we'll get our 16 meg module installed, just like so, and get a screw in. Excellent. So now we should be able to go ahead and reconnect the keyboard, but I think I'm going to go ahead and put this shield back in, just because this was kind of in there already, and Yeah, I'm not sure if this really provides any, sort of actual sinking of the heat, but yeah, we'll go ahead and just screw that back down. All right, so let's get our keyboard connected. And yeah, this is always a little bit fiddly. So go ahead and get the keyboard cable in. And we'll push down the two sides of the clip. So sometimes with these, you kind of have to push one side and then push the other, kind of over and over until it's actually all the way seated in. So there we go. And we'll put the rest of these screws back in a minute, but let's see if we can go ahead and start this Libretto up and see if it boots. Okay, so a little bit hard to see, but yeah, we're getting the check system, press F1. And yeah, there we go, 32 megabytes of RAM. So we'll go ahead and escape out of this. Let's see, where's the function key? Oh, there it is, function end. Yes, we'll save. Awesome. So we're here at the boot menu, and if you want to know more about this, I'd like to do a future video on this, but kind of have a compact flash card that I clone between some of my Librettos here, and it gives me the option of booting into DOS 622, which I also have Windows 3.11 installed on that partition, and then a Windows 95 partition and a Windows 98 SE partition. So that makes it quite a handy little machine that I can boot into different versions of Windows. But yeah, I'd like to cover that in a future video. This is Grub for DOS, so it's a neat little bootloader that allows this sort of thing. So yeah, I think now all is left to do is to get the rest of the screws back in this machine, do a little bit of cleaning here of the LCD, and see if we can repair a little bit of these cracks in the front housing. Okay, so let's see if we can do a little bit of a repair to this front cover for the LCD. So it started to crack around here and around here. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of CA glue and see if we can get that to bond and hopefully hold up. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of glue along this crack. And hopefully this isn't too thick. If it is, we might have to file it just ever so slightly. But we'll get a good bead there. And let's see, this other crack was here. So we'll go ahead and apply some of this to there as well. And we'll use a pretty liberal coating around this area. And I think I might go ahead and run a small bead along this entire top edge, just because, well, it's already starting to crack. And definitely don't want that to continue. So I'm just going to give a small bead along this whole top edge, and hopefully that adds a little bit of mechanical strength back to this. So just like so, just apply a little bit of glue there, and we'll keep going along this edge here. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry, and I'm going to put a small amount of weight here just so that the glue kind of gets into these cracks and starts to actually bond. And hopefully when we come back, we can go ahead and get this machine reassembled. So I'll be back in a minute once this glue is dried and do a little bit of a test drive of the Libretto with the USB-C. And we're back. So yeah, the glue has dried on this front cover for the LCD. And I don't know, this glue right here, this is what I use. It's supposed to be a little bit better than normal super glue, but honestly, it's either this plastic or this is some of the worst glue I've ever used. I don't know if the label peeling on the glue bottle is any indication of how well it works, but yeah, so I put a couple of extra coats on there, and I think it's holding up well. I'm not really gonna try and bend this to find out, just because the plastic will probably end up cracking somewhere else. But I think we'll go ahead and get this reassembled back on the front of this computer. And what I think I'm gonna do is take a little bit of double-sided tape just along this top edge on the screen, because I don't know how well this comes up on camera, but all of the clips at the top of the screen are completely busted. So there's really nothing to hold this on the top. I think the bottom will be fine. There are still a couple of clips that look okay on the bottom, and of course there's some screws there as well. So let's go ahead and get a little piece of tape here at the top of the screen and get this front bezel back on. Okay, so I have some double-sided tape here. This stuff is really sticky. I'm not really sure where I got this from. Kind of had it forever. Sometimes this kind of stuff just tends to kick around your lab for quite some time, so I'm not really sure what the brand is on that or anything, but it's worked well in the past. So I think we'll go ahead and cut a couple of strips to go at the top here. So I'm just going to cut some very thin strips out of this material, and yeah, it likes to stick to everything, so it's actually kind of hard to cut. So I think I'll come at this from the other direction. Should give me a pretty good strip. It's not the best cutting job there, but I don't think it's going to matter once this material's on there. And yeah, it just sticks to everything. So yeah, hopefully I can hug. All right. So we'll go ahead and get this strip here at the top of the screen. And again, that's just to try and help hold the front on the screen a little bit better. I don't actually know if this is going to work or do any sort of good job, but we'll give it a shot here. This is kind of uncharted territory for getting these librettos to stop disintegrating. And there we go. So yeah, there's going to be enough of that in there to kind of help stick to that front bezel. And yeah, here's the little pieces that'll cover those screw holes. We'll use some more of this double-side tape to re-adhere those onto the front. But yeah, now I think it's time to go ahead and try and get this back on there without causing any additional damage. So we'll just be very careful and probably snap at the bottom first and just work our way around the screen. So yeah, that seems to be working pretty well. And let's see about getting the clips here to reconnect on the bottom. Okay, there we go, and there we go. Okay, yeah, that should be good enough. And there's a little bit of extra, you know, the glue is going to add a little bit of extra kind of raised edge here where it is. There's really just no way to avoid that. But yeah, I think we'll go ahead and get the screws back in. Like so. Yeah, I sure hope that glue holds. I can hear it crack in there a little bit, but yeah, it's going back together, so. Okay, and the last screw. Excellent. So we'll just make sure our lid is closing and opening as we expect. And yeah, it's looking pretty good. So, yeah, slight lip here at the top, but yeah, it seems like our tape is doing a pretty good job of holding that on. So yeah, I think we can call that a success. Go go ahead and pop the mouse button back on. So yeah, all right, let's go ahead and get these two last covers on, and I think that'll wrap this up. Okay, I have one of the double-sided tapes on there now. I'm just going to go ahead and put the next one on. Just use our tweezers like so. Get that positioned. Give it a nice firm push down. Make sure that the glue is setting. And we'll just go ahead and peel up the other side of this tape, which is always a little bit tricky. This stuff is very, very sticky. There we go. And we'll do the same on this side. Careful not to peel up the actual adhesive. All right. So now we can just go ahead and let's see, get that little piece right there. Okay. All right. So now we should just be able to take these two little covers, and besides for the damage with it cracking, it'd be pretty difficult to tell that this was ever opened. So I'm going to push that down like so. Yeah, it's looking great. And we'll take the other cover and pop it down on this side. Yeah, there we go. All right. Well, that is a fully upgraded, repaired, and modified Toshiba Libretto 70. So we'll go ahead and close that up and get a little bit of a look on the outside. I did end up gluing this piece here on the back, so it doesn't look great, but probably a little bit better than if it was missing a chunk of plastic. On the side here, there was a little bit of damage. I tried to repair, but yeah, those pieces just disintegrated there, so really nothing to find. But yeah, this worked out really, really well. So let's go ahead and plug it in and give it a little bit of a test. Okay, well, here we have our buttoned up Libretto. Let's go ahead and plug in our USB-C cord. And yeah, just to kind of prove that that is really a USB-C port, you can see that right there. Very different than the original Toshiba charger. So we'll go ahead and plug in our USB-C cable there. And yeah, we can see that the power AC light has come on and the battery is charging, so that's fantastic. And yeah, I think that's gonna work great. In fact, as to the longevity of this particular modification, I actually made this a long time ago to a Libretto 50. And this one's been working great for over a year with that very same mod. So I can safely say that this is a very reliable modification to make to the Libretto if you can get that in there. And definitely makes it a lot easier than trying to fish out one of those proprietary, well, I mean, the Toshiba charger does charge a lot of different Toshiba laptops. It was fairly standard for them at the time, but yeah, anytime that you can just charge off of a regular USB-C cable, and of course things like your MacBook charger or your Dell charger that all use USB-C nowadays can also charge your Libretto, and I think that's pretty cool. So yeah, I think that probably about wraps it up. A few notes is that, well, I just do not recommend trying to buy Librettos from Japan. Every one of these that I have bought, the plastics are just crumbling. The ones that tended to have most of their life in the US seem to be holding up a little bit better. But all in all, the plastics on these are getting very, very brittle. Other than that, yeah, it's been great to share this particular modification with everybody, and I'll definitely be putting the STL file for the USB-C Toshiba socket down in the description, and there's also a replacement 3D printed hard drive cover that I'll be uploading as well, so that's worked out really well here on this Libretto 50. These are some of the first things to start to crack on the Toshibas, just because, well, that's probably where you're going in and out of the computer the most. And yes, that's two great little 3D printed replacement parts that you can get for the Libretto series. And well, thanks for taking a look. If you like this kind of thing, definitely encourage you to subscribe down below. Have more Toshiba Libretto related projects in the future, and many, many more. So yeah, thanks for taking a look, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.